In the United States, this is a case that arouses passionate points of view, and the majority of Americans who follow this case believe that Amanda Knox is innocent. Why do you think they're wrong?
Well, you know, I don't have a personal opinion on this, but I do have the opinion that we have an obligation to respect the Italian system, and they heard all of the evidence in this case. And you know, the one name we haven't heard is Meredith Kercher. She was a young woman in her 20s, stabbed 40 times, and that's why British public opinion and Italian public opinion is anti-Amanda Knox. Now, what's the case against her? One, the Italians say she confessed to the crime. Then she recanted the confession, but she also wrote it out in addition to orally confessing to the crime. They say that her DNA is linked to the murder. It's on the murder weapon. They say that her DNA, by the way, was found mixed with Meredith Kercher's blood at the apartment. Then they say she acted totally inappropriately after the murder.
There's the cartwheels that I was referring to.
There's a claim that she was doing cartwheels at the police station. There's also a claim that she and her boyfriend were making out in the area that they were being held while questioning was going on. Now this, while Meredith Kercher, her best friend and roommate, lies stabbed to death. So everyone thought inappropriate conduct. Now let me add one other thing the Italians say. They say that Solicito and her alibi, you know, the alibi was that they were together at the time of the murder. However, when they interviewed him first, his alibi was different than her alibi.
So the stories didn't match up.
The stories didn't match up. So they say false alibi, DNA, inappropriate behavior, and she confessed to the crime. How can you ridicule the Italians for convicting on that evidence?
Steve, when it's laid out like that, it does make a real case for a guilty verdict. You have looked into this. You have gone. You have looked at the evidence in Italy. Why do you say it proves Amanda Knox is innocent?
Well, because unlike Detective Callan, I have looked into the case. Callan just repeated only what the Italian said. He has said he has no opinion on it, and that means he hasn't looked at the evidence firsthand. Therefore, if he is, as he says, a New York homicide detective, had he looked at that information, had he looked at every bit of evidence, he would agree with me and he wouldn't be spouting the Italian lie. I know that's his job as a correspondent.
But I know he's going to want to reply to that, of course, because you're maligning his name. But lay out for me, please, why you say...
Prove me wrong with the evidence.
Okay, but make your case first. Why is that wrong when you have the DNA mixed on the knife, when you have a confession twice made and recanted? These are the points he's making that the prosecution makes. Tell us why, from your investigation, it's wrong.
First of all, there was no DNA mixed on the knife. The second trial proved with independent experts that the DNA that they claim was the victim's was not on the knife. It was thrown out. So you have to accept that. There was no DNA of the victim on the knife. Amanda cooked with that knife, and it was in a kitchen drawer. It was a as the detective will know, this was a disorganized crime scene. They do not keep the weapon. They do not go places to get the other weapon. Again, the knife did not fit the wounds. So how can you say that that knife committed the crime? There was another knife print of the knife that did fit the wounds. That was never found. So the knife is out. Then the confession is out, and and the detective will have to agree with me on this, if you give me 53 hours with a suspect and I can slap them, hit them, deny water, food, anything, I can get Detective Callan to admit to the crime. If you then go to the bra clasp and admit that that thing was recovered 6 weeks after the crime in a crime scene that had been released, and the independent DNA expert says that right, and it said that even with that, the DNA that they said was Raphael's was actually a woman's DNA. So you don't have the DNA on the bra clasp, you don't have the knife, you don't have any confession, and that alleged cartwheel was yoga moves to end stress, and this making out that they said happened was a woman standing outside her own house where her best friend had just been slaughtered, and her boyfriend is holding on to her to comfort her, and they pecked 2 or 3 times on the lips. That's making out. And it offends me when people talk about this case without without looking into it.
You know, Steve has very impressive investigative credentials, but he should realize that I'm not a detective, I'm a lawyer. So you should have done a little bit more investigation on that before you sat in the chair. And my position,
I was reading your lower thirds.
Yeah, okay. And
it said detective.
Well, all right. Well, I read your upper thirds, and what I found is you have very impressive credentials, but even in this country, we don't let former FBI agents decide guilt or innocence. We let juries decide guilt or innocence. And the one thing about this case, and I wasn't in court, nor were you, but I do know this.
Yes, I was.
I do know, maybe for part of the trials you were. I don't think you were there for all of the trials. I do know that you have this case going all the way to the Italian Supreme Court. You have 6 individuals evaluating it at the intermediate level. You have a lower court level. Court after court after court in the end has said, you know, there is enough evidence here to convict her in much the same way that might be said in the United States. So I'm saying there's enough evidence here for them to have based a judgment on.